The American Civil War witnessed many turning points, but none as deliberately destructive as General William Tecumseh Sherman's march to the sea. In 62 days, his 60,000-man army advanced 285 miles from Atlanta to Savannah, leaving a scar across Georgia that would alter warfare forever. This was not random violence, but a meticulously planned strategy of economic annihilation. Railroad tracks became Sherman's neckties, crops vanished in smoke, and the very idea of Southern independence crumbled with each burned plantation. The general himself called it hard war, a campaign targeting not just soldiers, but the Confederacy's capacity and will to fight. Yet, behind the military success lies an enduring moral question. Did victory justify the suffering inflicted on civilian populations? Contemporary diaries describe terrorized families watching their world burn, while military records show the campaign may have shortened the war by months. If you appreciate our historical content, we'd be grateful for your support. Please like and subscribe to help us continue sharing these stories. The man who commanded Union forces in their final destructive campaigns in the South, rushing through Georgia and Carolinas. His troops known him as Uncle Billy, yet for white Southerners, the name General William Tecumseh Sherman brings up images of the worst of mankind and the Satan incarnate. Sherman, who famously said, "War is hell," brought the true hell of war to the South. He was one of Grant's closest friends and played a key role in bringing the violent war to an end. However, the destruction caused by Sherman's march remains controversial, and many Southerners still hate him with passion. Let's take a deeper look into his biography. Sherman, one of 11 children, came from a well-known family. His father had been a member of Ohio's Supreme Court until his unexpected death in 1829. Senator Thomas Ewing adopted William, and when Sherman was 16, Ewing secured an appointment for him at West Point. In 1840, he graduated 6th in his class. His early military career was far from impressive. He saw some battles during the Second Seminole War in Florida, but unlike many of his comrades, he did not participate in the Mexican-American War, instead being stranded as an administrative officer somewhere in California. He married his foster sister, Ellen Ewing, in 1850. Sherman resigned from the Army in 1853 and went to San Francisco, which was experiencing a gold rush at the time. There, he began working as a banker, but his career was cut short by the Panic of 1857. His old Southern buddies, Braxton Bragg and P.G.T. Beauregard, found him a job as administrator of a recently established military academy in Louisiana. Sherman wasn't much of a critic of slavery, but he was strongly opposed to Southern secession on this issue. He constantly cautioned his Southern allies about the risks of competing with the wealthier, industrialized North, but they never listened to him. He left his job in January 1861 after Louisiana seceded. After the Confederate States of America attacked Fort Sumter, Sherman became worried that President Abraham Lincoln won't find enough troops to end the war quickly. But he overcame his fears, and his brother John got him a commission in the United States Army. Sherman fought in the First Battle of Bull Run, Virginia, where Union troops were heavily defeated by the Confederate Army. He performed miserably when assigned to command troops in Kentucky. Some newspapers described him as crazy due to his constant demands for reinforcements and general nervousness. Lincoln promoted Sherman to Brigadier General of Volunteers, and he also received praise for his actions. Sherman was publicly ridiculed as insane because both the South and the North believed the war would be quick and minor conflict. Sherman was one of the few people in the country who knew that such an aggressive war would require at least 200,000 soldiers to crush the revolt. This number could be compared to the populations of major cities like Boston or Baltimore. Sherman faced ridicule for this estimate, treated as though he had demanded 10 million soldiers, and contemporary newspapers eagerly published the figure before anyone could challenge it. Only after the Battle of Shiloh did the nation comprehend the war's true savagery, with subsequent events proving Sherman's projections had been woefully inadequate. During a heated discussion with Secretary of War Cameron in Louisville, Kentucky, Sherman spread out a map illustrating the stark troop disparities. He pointed out how General McClellan commanded 100,000 men to defend a 100-mile eastern front, while Fremont led 60,000 troops covering a similar western span. Meanwhile, Sherman's forces numbered merely 18,000, stretched across 300 miles of territory. Relieved of command in November 1861, a despondent Sherman returned to Ohio, battling severe depression and nervous exhaustion. His fortunes changed when he developed a crucial partnership with Ulysses S. Grant. Sherman would later remark, "Grant stood by me when I was crazy, and I stood by him when he was drunk. Now we stand by each other." Their bond solidified during the carnage at Shiloh, where Sherman and Grant rallied disorganized Union forces against Confederate surprise attacks. Though wounded in the hand and losing 2 horses to enemy fire, Sherman demonstrated exceptional leadership that helped avert disaster. This marked the beginning of their legendary collaboration that would ultimately secure Union victory. When criticism over Shiloh's heavy casualties nearly drove Grant from service, Sherman convinced him to remain. Their Western campaign culminated in the strategic capture of Vicksburg, Mississippi, where Sherman's 15th Corps played a pivotal logistical role in the siege operations. The Confederate surrender there, suffering 33,000 losses to the Union's 5,000, gave the North control of the Mississippi River, the war's decisive turning point. By mid-1864, Sherman initiated his Georgia campaign, shattering Confederate morale through what modern scholars term total war. Understanding that breaking the South's fighting spirit required unprecedented destruction, Sherman methodically ravaged everything in his army's path. Sherman's most enduring declaration? "War is cruelty. The crueler it is, the sooner it will be over." This philosophy guided his May 1864 march toward Atlanta, the industrial heart of the Confederacy. The brutal campaign for the city lasted all summer, with General Hood's forces finally surrendering Atlanta on September 1, 1864. That November, Sherman ordered the systematic burning of the captured city, over 3,000 structures reduced to ashes, including homes, businesses, and hospitals. Throughout October, Sherman had stockpiled supplies in Atlanta, then methodically destroyed anything that might aid Confederate recovery after his departure. The Atlanta victory proved pivotal, bolstering Lincoln's re-election campaign. Sherman now believed only total war, crushing both military and civilian capacity, could defeat the Confederacy. With presidential approval, he launched his infamous March to the Sea, dividing his army into 2 destructive columns. Their path left Sherman's neckties, twisted railroad tracks, and terrified Georgians in its wake. The general's media blackout kept Northern citizens unaware of his movements as his troops ravaged the countryside, confiscating or burning food stores meant to sustain both armies and civilians through winter. Reaching Savannah on December 21, 1864, Sherman found the city abandoned by its 10,000 defenders. He presented the captured city and its 25,000 cotton bales to Lincoln as a Christmas gift. The destruction continued into 1865 as Sherman's army carved through South Carolina with particular vengeance, the birthplace of secession and where the war began at Fort Sumter. Columbia burned nearly to the ground, with total March to the Sea damages exceeding $100 million, over $1 billion today. Sherman later accepted the largest Confederate surrender of the war from General Johnston. Some historians attribute his merciless tactics to grief over his son Willie's death from camp fever. When Grant assumed the presidency in 1869, he appointed Sherman commanding general, where he applied his brutal philosophy against Native Americans, justifying attacks on all tribal members during Western campaigns. Though opposing corrupt Indian agents, Sherman maintained natives impeded progress, declaring combat required targeting entire populations. Retiring in 1884, Sherman rejected all political overtures with his famous refusal. "I will not accept if nominated, and will not serve if elected. He died in New York on February 14, 1891, aged 71, leaving behind one of America's most complex military legacies.